Hello everyone, Tactical Edge here. Got a replay from Mr. Teufel featuring the Vampire Counts versus Bretonnia. Mr. Teufel's Vampire Counts going for a rather chaffy front line. 5 units of zombies, 4 units of skeleton spears. All the funds went into the mobility and monsters. 2 units of Blood Knights, some very expensive cavalry units, and also the Varix Reavers. Regiment of renowned Black Knights with lances and barding comes with their own regeneration as well. The faster mobility are some dire wolves, one of them the anti-large dire pack. In the skies, we have some devils of Schwarzstaffen that has terror and frenzy as their regiment of renowned traits. Leading the army, Manfred von Kostein on his zombie dragon coming in with Spirit Leech, Fate of Buna, and Invocation of Nahek. On the other side of the battlefield, we have the Bretonnians with a rather chaffy front line as well, actually. Peasant mobs and the men-at-arms with shields. Very standard stuff from Bretonnia, but they also have the Holy Wardens of the Mason Tau, slightly more elite than the rest of the peasant infantry. They're backed up by some peasant bows and a blessed few trebuchet with the Lady Bathwater rocks exploding with a bit of magical damage. Behind them, a couple of spearmen at arms, providing a bit of backline protection and a ton of mobility as well. Very staple for the Bretonnians yet again. Knights of the Lionhearted providing a slightly more elite Knights of the Realm with magic attacks, and Grail Knights. Bretonnians, superhuman cavalry, and the Ladies Chosen. In the skies, the Royal Hippogriff Knight and regular Pegasus Knights, not royal ones, just regular ones. So no magic attacks and no damage resistance from the Blessing of the Lady trait. Leading the army, Fey Enchantress coming in with Chalice of Potions, the Favor of the Fey, Flesh to Stone, and Regrowth. There's also the Grail Reliquary in the front line, providing peasants with immune to psychology to counteract the Vampire Count's terror. That's it for the army builds, and now let's get the battle started. As the battle begins, the Vampire Count chavs are slowly marching towards the peasant formations. Peasant artillery, those blessed few trebuchet, are trying to blast down some of the chaff, but their pistol accuracy basically missed all the shots on the infantry, but somehow had a better luck at hitting the Blood Knights instead. Now another hit gone inside the Skeleton Spear formation, doing some pretty nice damage, while Grail Knights, they are trying to cycle charge down some of the zombies before they get into front line and clash with peasants in melee. Knights of the Lionhearted also doing the same thing, but some of them got stuck in the middle of some spears and zombies, so they're taking some minor damage, while at the same time the Vampire Counts shifting all their mobility to the right flank, readying to launch their flank overload once the Vampire Chaff gets in contact with the Peasant. A Chalice of Potion blasting some zombies who are stuck and lagging behind as they were busy fighting those 2 unit models of the Knights of the Lionhearted. In the skies, a massive engagement going on. Manfred von Kostein dropped a huge Fate of Buna onto the Royal Hippogriffs, trying to burst down their HP alongside a charge from the Devils of Schwarzstaffen, even the Spirit Leech going down, really trying to drain away the health of the Royal Hippogriff Knights. But these are some elite Bretonnian cavalry, Pegasus Knights and Royal Hippogriff Knights countercharging. The Devils of Schwarzstaffen absolutely wrecking them in melee combat. Even with their hunger healing and the Invocation of Nahek, it is still not enough to sustain their HP, while the Royal Hippogriff Knights tanking the damage with a Regrowth healing them back up, plus a Flesh to Stone spell, giving them 60% of physical resistance to tank the damage from the Vampire Counts. Plus the 15% of ward save from the Blessing of the Lady, the Hippogriff Knights are negating 75% of incoming damage, and their HP is just not going down. But because of all the spells going to the Royal Hippogriff Knights, the Grail Knights are left to dry, being overwhelmed by a ton of Vampire Count mobility. Surrounded by a ton of Blood Knights, Varix Reavers, and even the Dire Packs are in the fray, the Grail Knights are quickly slaughtered. At least all the expensive cavalry from the Counts are blobbed up so the Fae can drain them down with Mist of the Lady, Manfred though diving onto the ground. The Devils of Schwarzstaffen are dead, so Manfred doesn't want to take the air fight alone against the Royal Hippogriff Knights and Pegasus Knights, but the Bretonnian aerial cav follows him to the ground, trying to kill him in the melee fight. Thankfully, the Varix Reavers Blood Knights are all nearby, so they're doing some pretty good damage to the rest of the Bretonnian army. Knights of the Lionhearted, though, has returned from the frontline engagement, now charging in, and the Blood Knights, Varix Reavers will all be subjected to that anti-large damage. In the front line, the zombies and skeleton spears are slowly grinding through the peasants, but the peasants are actually winning overall due to the support from the Blessed Trebuchet Fire and the superior infantry of the Holy Wardens of the Mason Tau. Already 125 kills. Now over here, the Pegasus Knights and Royal Hippogriff Knights continues to fight it out. Another field of unit onto the Royal Hippogriff Knight, but now down to 11 unit models. Is not exactly the best use of the spells, probably better if he just dumped it on the Pegasus Knights. But either ways, the Royal Hippogriff Knights are sustaining massive losses, as the attacks from Manfred also coming through all the armor-piercing damage. Blood Knights are duking it out with their innate regeneration, with the hungry healing, and they are holding on for now. The rest of the Blood Knights are actually not doing too hot though. I think one of them already crumbled to dust. Nope, almost crumbling to dust, as the Knights of the Lion-Hearted really doing some good work overall. Another regrowth from the Fey Enchantress, as there's no other good targets to drop those healing really. Might as well just drop it on the relatively healthy unit with more unit models to heal. So the Knights of the Lion-Hearted duking it out with the Verix Reavers with the anti-large and better melee stats, and the Favor of the Fate boosting their melee attack. They are shredding through the defenses of the Verix Reaver regardless of their regeneration. In the skies, the Pegasus Knights have regrouped, and the Peasant Bows are also moving up to try and shoot at the Verix Reavers and work down another unit of Vampire Count Cavalry. Blood Knights are trying to move in and support the Verix Reavers, but the Pegasus Knights in the sky decided to charge down and interfere. So they're taking some minor damage from the intercepting charge, and the Peasant Bows continues to rain in arrow fire. The Flesh to Stone is now dropped onto the Knights of the Lion-Hearted, keeping them fighting in the fray here. They don't have the Blessing of the Lady, so it is just a 60% physical resistance, but it is really helping them a lot in just tanking it out against Blood Knights. Though with Manfred in the fray, the Knights of the Lion-Hearted are still taking massive damage and are terror routed. But they hang on a little bit longer, and that's all that matters. The peasant chaff of the Bretonnian army are slowly moving over. For some reason, their sprinting mode was turned off, so they are moving over rather slowly, and that is making their reinforcement rather delayed, leaving the Fae taking a lot of damage from the surround of the Blood Knights. But here comes the peasants to screen out the dire packs. Manfred, though, still taking huge chunks of health away from the Fey Enchantress, while the Pegasus Knights in disguise will be diving on to the Blood Knights. The Fey is dropping some healing on herself, getting a regrowth, trying to keep herself healthy. And now she is moving over to reinforce the Pegasus Knights against the Blood Knights. She does have the Blessing of the Lady to give herself a bit of damage resistance and mitigate some of the incoming damage, while at the same time Mist of the Lady will drain away the HP of the enemies. Now the Fey Enchantress will be backing off as Manfred is in the vicinity, and Blood Knights are shredding through the remaining HP of the Pegasus Knights. The Invocation of Nahek getting some really good healing done onto the Blood Knights, keeping them in the fight, still having 35 unit models and 1/3 of their HP. So the Fae decided not to fight in that melee blob and went back over here instead to drain away the health of the zombies using the Mist of the Lady. There's a lot of infantry for Bretonnia to hold on in the late game here, especially the Holy Wardens of La Maison Tau, and elite, relatively elite for peasants infantry. So they are holding on with their frenzy, shredding through the remaining HP of the zombies. But speaking about shredding through remaining HP, a breath attack, a nasty one from Manfred von Kostein, and his Dragon Mount blasting away some health from the Holy Wardens, now down to less than half health. Definitely a lot of damage from there. Manfred dropping down on the Fey Enchantress, getting some big hits in. Peasants are coming in, trying to push Manfred away, but unfortunately they are just peasants, so they don't really have enough mass to stop Manfred from pulling out of engagements and whatnot. Blood Knights are now ping-ponging around the battlefield, trying to dish out as much charge impact damage as possible. Perhaps these peasants would be a good target to charge, but they also want to support the zombies, I guess, to secure some infantry support, and also burst down some men-at-arms with shields. Another healing from Manfred von Kostein, dropping that invocation onto the Blood Knights here. Blood Knights do passively regenerate with their hunger healing while in melee, so I'm not sure how useful an invocation of Nahek is on the Blood Knights. Probably it would be better to heal Manfred, who is further away from the healing cap, but I guess Mr. Teufel really wants to keep the Blood Knights alive. Blood Knights probably want to get out of there, because the Fae is draining away their HP regardless of their tankiness, their armor, their melee defense and whatnot, and they're just slowly, passively being killed by the aura. Some Peasant Bows regrouped on the far side here, raining in arrow fire once more into the blob, and the Blood Knights are taking a lot of damage from the peasants around with the Spearmen at Arms with the anti-large attacks and the Grail Reliquary keeping those peasants in the fight. I think the Grail Reliquary also provided a bit of melee attack buff. Alright, yeah, the Icon of Devotion adding +5 melee attack to the surrounding peasants. So the peasants have a little bit of melee stats buff, other than those very key leadership effects that keep them in the fight. Fey Enchantress trying to get out here here to save the peasant archers, but she's getting a bit ahead of herself, falling victim to the pursuit of Blood Knights and Manfred von Kostein, a very scary dragon going her way. Another spell from Manfred, dropping into the infantry blob, so probably a Fate of Buna. Yep, a Fate of Buna onto the Holy Wardens of La Maison-Tel, who had a little bit more HP since we last saw them. I assume the Lore of Life passive was activated to give them some HP when the Fae cast the regrowths. But that doesn't matter now, as the Fate of Buna is just going to drain away their HP directly, regardless of the healing they got previously. Manfred diving down now, trying to go after the Fae and snipe out the Bretonnian leadership. The Blood Knights are going down as they're stuck in the surround of a ton of peasants and the Holy Wardens, of course. But the problem is, if the Fae gets sniped out, there is not really much else the peasants can do against Manfred von Kostein. She can't kill Manfred in melee, of course, but if she stays alive long enough, then the peasants will also keep themselves in the fight to slowly drag down Manfred over time. And of course, the Mist of the Lady, if she can activate it, will also do some passive damage to Manfred and his zombie dragon. But the problem is that she is getting really low right now, and the peasants are struggling to keep Manfred in check. Luckily, as Manfred tries to push through the peasant blob, the peasants are slowly poking him down as well. The damage does add up over time, forcing Manfred to drop an Invocation of an Hack on himself. He also dropped a Spirit Leech onto the Fae, but the problem is that the Fae doesn't really care about spell damage with her innate resistances. On a Unicorn mount, she has 60% of spell resistance, and the Blessing of the Lady adding another 15% ward save, so in total 75% of damage resistance against any spell damage. Though Manfred melee attacks are doing really well so far, and the Fae is almost done for, really trying to desperate to just do some Benny Hill action and drag Manfred around while giving a bit more time for the peasant infantry to drag down Manfred. But one final strike from Manfred takes down the Fae. All that's left are the peasants and the Grail Reliquary. The Grail Reliquary is holding this entire blob of peasants together, but he needs to push through his own infantry support and get away from Manfred, because the Grail Reliquary isn't really doing anything against Manfred in melee, and it is more important to just keep the peasants around. The peasants are slowly dragging down Manfred, but once the Grail Reliquary goes down, the leadership of all these peasants will be falling apart without that leadership support of the Icon of Devotion. And because of the loss of immune to psychology, all these peasant mobs, the men-at-arms, are all falling apart due to the terror from Manfred's dragon. And with one unit goes, the others will follow due to the chain routing effect. And we can just fast forward as Manfred successfully terrifies everything left on the Bretonnian army, his dragon feasting on the fleeing peasants and their corpses. GG to both players, and big thanks to Mr. Teufel for sending in the game. Now for the army performances, the Blood Knights did pretty well alongside the Varix Reavers, though do keep in mind that the damage value on these knights are quite inflated because of all the healing from the Fae Enchantress. Manfred himself, though, 4,500 gold worth of damage value. He is on a rampage with his zombie dragon today. The Devils of Shrotsoften got absolutely shredded by the Pegasus Knights and Hippogriff Knights, so not a lot of damage on these guys. The Hounds, the Dire Wolves did alright, while the rest of the zombie and skeleton chaff, well, they are just chaff, so not much to say about them. Overall, the Vampire Counts with their overwhelming mobility did a lot of damage, but really it's Manfred carrying the game with the double Fate of Buna, draining the health away, actually triple Fate of Buna and a few Spirit Leeches to drain away the health of the Royal Hippogriff Knights and the Holy Wardens of La Maison-Tel. The Invocation of the Hack was also very key in keeping the Blood Knights in the fight. And the Bretonnians, the Fae's Mist of the Lady drain away quite a bit of health from the Vampire Count's units, especially when the Blood Knights are blobbing up around him, while the Demogryphs unfortunately not doing a lot of damage, and the Grail Knights got absolutely overwhelmed by the sheer numbers of Vampire Count Elite Cav. Knights of Lionhearted did very well here, with all the healing supporting and the favor of the Fae, but really the MVP of the Bretonnians are the Pegasus Knights. You rarely see them perform well in battle, but I suppose in here, with their anti-large attacks really cutting through the HP of the Devils of Shrotsoften, Manfred, and some of the Blood Knights as well, doing a lot of damage overall. The rest of the Bretonnian army unfortunately just got overwhelmed by the zombie frontline and the heavy mobility of the Vampire Counts. they just kind of got routed in the end as well. Did some good damage to Manfred in the late game, but nothing really to hold their leadership there after the Fey Enchantress and the Grail Reliquary died. So yeah, that's it for today's battle. I hope you all enjoyed this multiplayer action, and if you want to see more Total War Warhammer content, be sure to subscribe to my channel. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Tactical Lich, signing out.